Welcome to Inside Out with Sahas and Ali, episode 8. We talk about mindset, mental health challenges, belief system, and push you to ask more whys to help you find the genius inside of you. Yes, I said genius because you are one. Today, we have a special guest, Randy Powell, who is a real estate investor, an agent, entrepreneur by heart, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, and believes if he can do it, you can do it too. And in his own words, and I'm quoting him, I am you, I was you, I'm no different from you. I can do it, so can you. Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having
Wel-
me, guys.
Welcome, Randy. Very excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Randy, just before we dive into the questions, could you just give me a little brief about this question, this statement that you made? And this totally stuck with me, you could see, because we had this conversation some time back, and I actually wrote it down in the moment when you were saying, because you were just into some kind of a flow when you actually thought about it. So, what is this all about?
Um, yeah, so I really believe that um, my friends and my peers and my family around me, right? I believe we all came from the same place, or we all met at some particular time, right? And I feel that sometimes not everyone is happy where they are, or sometimes people have not made the right choices to be where they are, right? And I feel that I've reached some level of achievement in my life where I set out my goals and I attain them. And the I am you and you am I and I am you is meaning that we all started at the same place, right? And it's just those small decisions that we make every day that can get us to where we actually want to go. So I'm no different from nobody else.
And I also want to go back again, like, because I see where does this exactly come from, because you obviously have achieved from where did you start long time back. Maybe it was real estate, maybe from your job, and you, in one of your Instagram posts, I actually saw that it was I think dated around 2008 or 9, and you put a picture of your handwriting, writing it down in making concrete and saying that this is where you are, this is what you want to do, and this is how you're going to do it. What's the story behind that post?
Okay. Well, first, I didn't know you actually spent some time looking at that post. I was actually very nervous to post that because it was pretty personal to me, right? And but I put it out there because it was real and it was true, right? I did write it down on paper, my goals that I wanted to attain in the near future at that time. And it really comes down to a belief system that I have that if you really want to achieve anything, you actually have to plan it down. And that's going to start by you putting it on paper and being able to reflect back on it for checks and balances.
Right. But that's what I think, like you were what, like 25 years of age or 24 years, something around that, right?
Yes, exactly.
And not everybody has that kind of a mindset at that moment. And maybe I saw that you said that you are in a debt and you want to get out of the debt and whatnot. A lot of people might feel anxious, have anxiety around, like they are drowning in water with debt and all that stuff, and they find it very hard to get out of that situation through their mental stress. How did you manage to do that, control your actions as well as your stress levels, so that you could achieve those decisions that you have actually penned down? How did you
Right.
do?
So I come from a very colorful background, like many experiences, right? And I was on my own at a very young age, 19. So maybe some people were younger, but I feel that was pretty young, especially around my friends and that I grew up with, right? And I knew that I was going to be the only one that was going to be responsible for my happiness and my success. So in order for me to do that, I guess I have to set out what it is I'm trying to accomplish and just go ahead and do it.
So it seems like because a lot of people I find are something happens in their life when they're young that pushes them towards, let's say in your case, the goal of financial freedom. Was there something that pushed you, maybe like a teacher, maybe something your parents did, or something you grew up and you saw and you said, this is not who I want to be? that you instantly decided that I'm going to get into entrepreneurship?
There was people around me and people that you see that you're like, I want to be like that person, right?
Hmm.
So I really knew that I wanted to achieve, I guess, I never like to word it with money, right? But I wanted to be successful, right?
Hmm.
And I had a lot of, I guess, self-confidence at that time, which was, built in from my family, from being raised by my grandmother and my father and stuff like that, where I knew that I could achieve a lot more, right? I had good personal skills. I was pretty talented. I was pretty handy, right? And had a lot of skills and talent, right? And I knew that one day, when the opportunity was going to arise, that I would be okay.
Yeah. And when you said that you were a pretty smart kid, what kind of smart kid were you?
I don't even know how to answer that. I would say that the I don't know. It's overall. I wouldn't say if there was a specific way of being smart. I think it's how you process information and how you process your experiences, right? What you do with the things that you read, what you do with the things that you see, what you do with the things that you've overcome in your life, right? Those are the things that I guess makes you smart, or the ability to just process that information and channel it, especially in a good way.
Absolutely, because you're absolutely right about this. Because even I believe it's not one passion. I mean, if somebody has a passion for something, that's pretty good. I mean, you have a passion for football, you have a passion for some particular skill, that's fine. But what you really need to be focusing on is to have passion for passion itself. Whatever you do, whatever your goal is, you're just passionate to do in the most, putting out there, giving you 100%. And I think somewhere that you already had that passion for passion itself, that
Yes, definitely.
this is what I want to achieve my life. And but going back again, like now, Randy, you are a successful entrepreneur, you are an agent, a real estate agent, you also have many real estate uh, like investment properties. How did you get started in this, and what was the one pivotal moment which got you into understanding about financial literacy?
Okay. So back in high school, I had a math teacher, right? His name was Mr. Savas. And he always talked about investing, especially when it comes to the stock market. He always talked about day trading. And, I remember he told a story about a kid who was a skateboard kid that, made like 200K in a summer just trading stocks, right? So those are the kind of things that really inspired me and motivated me to wanting to learn about money, wanting to learn about finances and investing at a very young age.
Hmm. And were you always like that, like curious? You always had that curious bug to actually do something different than the rest of them. And also, another question attached to this one is, what were other friends and peers at the same time doing with you? Were they also as curious? Were you able to have that kind of a conversation with them, or you were the lone wolf and doing whatever stuff that you wanted to do?
Um, I would say that I never did anything different in the terms of the day-to-day activities than what my friends were doing. We hung out, you know, we hung out in the park, we drank, I smoked like anybody else, right? And I partied, right? But what I would say was the difference between me and maybe some of my friends, because I love my friends, right? My friends are really good. All my childhood friends are my friends and people that I hang out with and talk with every day, right? Um, but the difference was when I went home, right? Is just the things that maybe you think about, right? Maybe we all have different goals and we ponder on different things when we go home, right? And there was always a part of me that knew I wanted to be successful and I wanted to not just party and hang out and
Hmm.
and stuff like that. That I wanted more, right? And sometimes it's just your experiences, like for example, when I moved out and I was 19 and I lived in my basement apartment of my landlord, he had I think 3 or 4 different units in the house, and the garage itself was actually turned into a bedroom. And I was like, hey, this guy is smart, like he could just be making lots of money per month. And I was like, you know what, I actually admired that. Maybe some people wouldn't appreciate that as much, but I actually admired the hustle. I admired the entrepreneurial and the businessman side of that, right? So I knew I actually wanted to do maybe something similar, or I wanted to own a property where I can actually charge for rent. Like those are the kind of things that happen in your life that make you got to take that, process it, right, and turn it into a positive for yourself, right?
Now, Randy, you said something really interesting back there about growing up with your friends. It seems like you had a normal childhood like everyone else. Nothing was given to you, no silver spoons. Yet you struggled for what you wanted, and you got what you basically worked for. Now, I've noticed this happen a lot with the people I've been in touch with when it comes to maintaining your circle of friends. What happens is usually once you hit a certain level of success, you tend to lose more and more friends over time, mostly because of common interests, different goals, different beliefs. Did you ever feel that way? Did you ever feel that your circle of influence or people around you were holding you back, that you had to leave them behind and go and be your own person and be your own boss or your own friend in some cases?
Right. So first, I want to say that I know a lot of mentors and a lot of really successful people will always tell you that sometimes you got to cut the cord, right? Like your friends
Mhm.
are holding you back. And I, contrary to that, I actually felt like my friends hadn't hold me back, right? Because there
Mhm.
was also a part of me that wanted to hang out and do stuff too, right? But I knew in order for me to push forward for myself, I still also have to do those things that were going to get me forward. So I actually think that you can have the best of both worlds, right? If you really try, or even if you really, because your friends are not there like purposely trying to hold you back. They're just being friends, right? Those are the people that
Mhm.
you grew up with. Those are people that you actually make jokes with. Those guys know all your inside jokes and all your stories. And I don't feel like that's something that you should give up just in the pursuit of money or maybe sometimes greater things, right? You have to set that boundary where when is it time for this and when is it time for that, right?
Mhm.
And I always maintained a level of balance, and I did I always continue to try to bring my friends and family and people around me up, right? But one thing I do know that you can't force them, right?
Exactly.
And when you cannot pull them up, right? Yes, you still have to uh try and climb ladders that you're trying to climb, right? But I still think you got to stay grounded. You cannot forget who
Mhm.
you are, and those people actually still love me because of who I am, so I'm going to love them back too, so it's all good.
I really like that. That's something really refreshing to hear, because most of the stuff you usually talk about and you get back from feedback is that entrepreneurship is a lonely road, because you end up losing everyone you thought they were your friend. Now, in your case, it seems like it's the exact opposite. It looks like, like you said, you got the best of both worlds. You got success and you got the taste of friendship and maintained your entire circle, which is truly, I think that's real success if you can win both worlds at the same time.
I agree.
But it's not the same case with everyone, right? Like we touched
Right.
about it, we talked
That's
about
right.
it. But I mean, you were able to make that distinction that uh, you wanted to go on your own route. You also wanted to keep your friends there, and they somehow understood. Did they take it that way, or was there some kind of a holdback from that side also? Did you ever try to explain them your side of the story also? Like, this is what I want to achieve in my life. You could also do it. Did you have that kind of a conversation with your friend as well?
I never had to. I never had to. My friends always supported me in anything that I was doing. If anything, they asked me questions, right? Like, how do I do this or how do I do that? And I was always an open book. I'm always willing to help them, right? I've never felt any animosity from my closest friends to be like, hey, man, you're trying to be different from us, or any of that. No, I never received any of that from any of my friends.
What really makes Randy grounded? Like you said that you always were grounded and till to the roots right now also. I mean, you sound like, I mean, you're very much sure where you've come from. What is that ground like?
Humble beginnings, man. uh, I wasn't born in Canada, right? I was actually born in Jamaica, and from a very small town, right? And if you ever saw where I'm from and where I am now, you'd be like, wow, it's like really a really big contrast, right? But I always had good people around me, though, right? I can always say that. And but I never came from money and didn't come from riches. I
Mhm.
very humble beginnings.
Right. I think the you did mention this bit earlier, which I really liked, is that you got a lot of support not from your friends as well, but as well as from your family, and I think that really shapes a character growing up when you're very young. Now, you mentioned that at a very young age you wanted to you knew what you wanted to do. Now, were there any certain limiting beliefs at that point holding you back, and what did you have to do over time to kind of come over them?
Limiting beliefs. I guess the limiting beliefs that I guess most people can have is maybe the level where they can actually reach, right? Sometimes I wouldn't think that I can actually, you know, if you told me that I can buy 5 properties by the age of, 33, 34, I'd probably be like, no. And it was just going to be one every like 3 or 4 years or something like that. But once you kind of get things going and you talk to people, you see what other people are doing, then you realize that a lot of things are possible. I guess, having limited beliefs comes from within, and I've always tried to kind of block a lot of that stuff out. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have a lot of challenges. Like, I do, like, maybe struggle with like some things, right? But for the most part, I honestly believe like a lot of things are possible.
I keep on going back again to your grounds. I keep on getting back to your roots.
Yeah.
And because it's so fascinating for me, and I'll tell you why. Because I really understand the hustle of a immigrant. I really understand the place that you come from and the kind of a mindset that you have, that it's like it's all fucking you. It's all what you gotta do, because this is, you have to make it. And it's
That's
just
it.
engraved in understanding from your parents' point of view, also from your upbringing, and also that you see the contrast, like you said, right? uh, what were the humble beginnings, and this is a whole different country altogether, and what kind of opportunities that you wanted to bring for yourself to make it happen. How was that childhood when you were in, when you came here? I think you didn't mention, but what age did you come here, and how was that school time for you, were in terms of you know new kid in the school? How was that time for you?
Okay. So I came here pretty young. I came here at the age of 8, right? In the third grade.
Mhm.
Um, and kids here were very different. Um, you feel that a lot of kids here were spoiled.
Yeah.
Um, they were like the smallest things that they complained about, right? And when, so like I grew up with my grandma mostly, right? And just to give you an example, was just a lady that bought like small goods like chips, candies, and stuff like that from wholesale, and then she would sell it back down on the main street in my district, like her little table. She would put it out, right? And I would come home from school, right, help her pack her stuff, and we would go down to the market, like, and sell her little goods, right? That's literally how I grew up until I came to Canada. So
Mhm.
I'm talking about, once we're down there running up and down the streets with the neighborhood kids and stuff like that, you get exposed to a lot at a very young age. Being out late at night, like until like parties are done, like the clubs are done, and that kind of thing. And that's at like 5, 6, 7 years old, right? Just me and my grandmother, to be honest with you, right? So coming up here and just seeing the dynamic and how kids grew up, it was so different, and it was just like, man, like if these guys every I went out my bathroom. I never had an indoor bathroom toilet. Everything was in an outhouse. We showered in a basin outside and outdoor toilets and showers, right? So those are the things that you come up here and having luxuries of. Like I never had TV until I came to Canada, to be honest with you,
Wow.
right? And just coming here and knowing where I'm from, it was. I think that is actually what gives you the step ahead of, or I would say less of more of a reason just to want more. You know what I mean?
Mm. But would you have changed anything in your childhood about this, like the way that you have been brought up and the kind of experiences that you've had?
Absolutely not. To be honest, I have a son and he's 2 years old right now. And sometimes I wish I can just bring him there for 2 years or 3 years as just to kind of grew up the way I grew up, so that they didn't see all these fancy things and toys and gadgets that all these
Mhm.
kids grew up with naturally here.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with Sahas on that. It really, and you as well, that your humble roots really define who you are. And I think when we're talking to you, I get that feel of like that humbleness, that down to earth guy, and I can definitely tell that's because of your upbringing. And I agree, like people that when I went to college here, I noticed there was a massive difference because I'm an immigrant as well, and the way people are raised here is very fucking different versus how they're raised in, let's say third world countries, right?
Right.
And that leaves a massive impression up until your adulthood. How you do your business, how you work, your work ethic. It's crazy how that impacts you.
Definitely. Sometimes I actually think maybe I'm too easygoing because a lot of things don't bug me, don't bother me, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes maybe something should, but
Mm.
yeah, some people
Right.
say I don't have like, feelings. It's not I don't have feelings. It's just that like, man, once you've seen certain things and you've been through certain things, life is a lot more. Like you can't worry about small things.
Absolutely. Like
Oh,
even I believe that, I, my wife and I, we wake up by being grateful for whatever life that we are having. It's not really about like having luxury. It's not really about as simple as that. We are breathing, we are living, we are enjoying another sunlight, we are enjoying another day. It doesn't have to be like really big things. It's
Exactly.
just like, because like you said that, right? You come from the beginnings where there was a public washroom or everything is on open. Think about it, like there are places where people have to travel 10 kilometers to just get a bottle of water,
It's
or
crazy.
it's crazy. Like, aren't we blessed in that way? That and we still worry about so many, we have so much stress and anxiety about things which really don't matter in a longer period of time.
Absolutely. I can even tell you, man, like when I was young, my grandmother, when I was going to get milk, my grandmother would send me to the guy down the road that had the cows, and we had to milk it ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Stuff like that, And like when the hurricane would come and we had no running water, like we have buckets of well water on our heads, just trying to come back home to boil it and stuff like that. Those are the things that really I reflect on and just be like, we have it so good here.
Yeah, yeah.
Life
yeah.
can't be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I totally believe that. And I think that's some kind of a, that hustle, that the time that we have seen at a very young age of in our time, in our life, just makes you the kind of person that you become later on in the future. And I think, uh, like even for me, when I was a kid, and I have seen all these things, not entirely because I mean, I've not seen a kind, it wasn't a right kind of a humble beginning for me, because I was born and bred with a silver spoon and all that stuff. Eventually things went a bit of south, and financial situations got a little bad. I learned it the hard way, because I was on the top and I came to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
None of my own money, none of, it's all my parents, right? And so at that moment I had two choices. One, complain about it, that, oh, I deserve the best because I've seen all this luxury in my life. Or
Right.
I could just fucking just work hard. And definitely I chose the second way, because I know I could do it, because I come from that kind of a background. If my father could build it, it doesn't matter that whatever happened in whatever adversities that he could not maintain for a long time, but I could do it. I'm it's i'm capable. Why do I have to blame him or my parents or the government or anyone around me for what is happening to me? It's because of me. So I
Right.
totally understand that humbleness comes from within. Nobody else can give you. It's just that the experiences makes you what kind of person that you become.
Absolutely. And it's so funny you mentioned that your background and your beginnings, right? And I personally respect and get inspired so much from people who actually come from a certain level or a certain class, but can, because they have every reason and every naturalness, I guess, to look down or to expect or to feel entitled, right? But like, for example, people that do come from humble beginnings, right? They have to fight for everything, and so it's almost like naturally that they had to do that, right? But it's actually unnatural for people who come from, you know, a higher status in society to to be humble and to resonate with the people, or resonate with I guess people who didn't come from as much fortune or whatever it is as them, right? I really have a special place for that. So to you.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, because that's the whole point. I mean, either I could whine about it and say that, things were so nice and I always cherished them. I mean, I've had good memories. I cannot complain anything about my childhood. I really can't. I mean, for me, I think, oh my God, like the kind of adversities that Randy has lived at. I mean, that's so solid to have that kind of a background to build upon to be the kind of person that you become. And when I look at my childhood, I was given everything. I just had to just look at my parents and it was just right there. So I know that that feeling of entitlement, that feeling of worthiness, that I belong to that status of my society, and I'm designed to be in that kind of society. I'm designed to be associated with those kind of people in the society.
Mhm.
But I think it's really important to when life hits hard, how do you act or do you react is really what really makes you. If you react, and that's a reaction, and once you give that reaction to life, it hits you even harder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you act, you could actually just think about it. Was that really you? Do you really think that you're entitled enough? What have you done in your life to actually deserve
Right.
all that stuff?
Right.
And that just got me also to think about it. No, that's not me. And that's how I learned. That's how I also learned, and I realized that what, I have to start from wherever that I have to. I'm just blessed for everything that is happening.
Right. And I can have to say that that means you're also that your parents, they instill certain values within you,
Yeah,
right?
because yeah, that's absolutely right. And I would say it's parents, and it's also the environment that you want to be around.
Right.
It's not really. It's your choice, man. It's your choice. I mean, there could be same people living in the same house and have different opinions and different growth over the period of time. It's you who decide your faith. Like you said, you knew that you wanted to be on that level. You want to be an entrepreneur. You wanted to be that. It's you.
Yep.
But it could be somebody else into your family who had a different direction, or maybe have no direction at all, or become a different person altogether. So I think the drive has to be within.
Absolutely.
It has to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
An environment can help you break it or make it, but uh, you know how you resist it or withstand that kind of an environment is all going to define your future.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
Yes.
One last question before we end. I think we have had very good discussion today, and so glad to have such a raw conversation about you, Randy, because a lot of stuff that even I don't know about, like hurricane shit and all that stuff, man,
Yeah.
was like, oh,
There's a lot more, man. There's a
there's a
lot
lot
more.
more. I think we have to come out with the second one
Yeah,
with
like true
yeah,
struggles growing up. That's
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah.
Like,
We won't
because
talk more. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because it seems like you really came from humble beginnings. Like, I mean, my mind's more like humble beginnings. Okay, so had problems growing up, didn't go to the best school. Yours is more a true story of transformation, like you don't see every day.
The real
You
life
see
shit.
the
Hmm? The real life shit, right?
Exactly. Like you hear about these stories. Oh, like some guy, he was at a crappy school. He didn't get good grades. Look at him now. That's the average story you get from like transformation. This is a whole other ballpark, and I'd be
But
interested in touching more base on that.
but there's levels, man. There's levels, because I look at some people's lives and how they grew up, and look how I grew up, and I was like, man, I was so lucky. I was so fortunate. There's other people that go through some rough stuff and suffer from a lot of other things that I wouldn't wish that on anyone, right? So even though I'm an immigrant, I do come from really humble beginnings, right? I would still say that I was lucky to have like people that care, my grandmother, my father, like my mom,
Mm-hmm.
that cared about me, and still, like, we never had much at the time, right? But at the same time, it could be worse. So there are levels, and there's people who come from rise from certain ashes, man, and you're just like, wow, wow.
Right, right. I mean, there's stories of people that came from child abuse, and they actually
Exactly.
psychology tells us that if you're growing up in a abusive household, there's a very high chance you're going to be just like that abusive person who abused you. And there are people that transform their lives. Obviously, everyone has their own story, and it really depends on the environment or factors that are taken in. But it's just something like you don't hear these kind of stories all the time until you talk to someone.
Right, exactly.
There is always a worst thing happening than the worst you think that is happening in your life or around you. Always
Def-
there's something or the other worse happening. Always.
Definitely.
Right. And I think that's what we really have to be grateful about. And that's where your humbleness comes in, right? Like your problems are not too big enough to actually sulk about and make an issue about. It will pass. But just pray and just be grateful and feel blessed that you have everything that you can actually make that, you know, uh, go ahead in your life, grow to that level, go up to that ladder if you really want to.
Yes.
Before we end this amazing conversation, Randy, I have one last question for you. You
Sure.
have like you've obviously been through a lot in your life. Like you've seen every kind of stuff. You've seen the highs, you've seen the lows. And what kind of a message that you want to give to the youth, to the people who are maybe out there in Jamaica, maybe out here in Canada, and how do you want to address them if they are going struggling through some kind of a phase in their life, and how can they make an impact the way that you have made in your life?
So I guess the one answer I can say to that is, when they say if you're giving lemons, right, you got to make lemonade, right? Use, whether it's good things that happen to you, whether it's bad things that happen to you, there's always a way that you can grow from it, learn from it, use it, right? Use it as motivation, use it as power, use it as something to say, I'd never want that again, right? To be what propels you to wherever the heck you want to go.
That's awesome, man.
Mhm.
Perfect. Thanks again for coming on, Randy. Really appreciate this.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a pleasure for sure.
Thank you, Randy. This is going to be an amazing episode when it comes out.
And get
All
ready
right.
for the second version. I think we should definitely dwell get into the true humble beginnings. I think that'd be a really interesting story to
We're going
share.
to get deep, man. We're going to get deep.
We'll have to make you sign a consent form as well. It'll be really deep.
No problem.
All right, buddy.
Stay
All
tuned for
right,
the
guys.
next
Thank
one.
you.
Take care, man.
All right. Have a
Bye.
good one, guys. Bye.